hometown, I designed and made the very first one for a lady in Loveland, Colorado that moved to Loveland, Colorado in 1917. Her parents moved there from Kansas because her father had tuberculosis. They started building homes in Loveland, and one of the homes he built was right across from where we put the sculpture. But as I was working on it, I hired a couple of kids I went to school with here in Holdrege, the Johnstons, Bobby and Peggy, and they modeled for me, and I didn't realize it, so the way I designed it, I set them up and I put the plans, the house plans, in Bob's hand, and then Peggy grabbed his hand and kind of holding it with him, and there's a little lunchbox next to it. But then I noticed that when Peggy grabbed the other side of the plans, Bob put his hand back here and Peggy put her hand back there, and if you walk around the sculpture, you'll see them, the whole piece, you can see the whole piece, but the sculpture itself, you walk around and you'll see their hands, they're holding hands, and that makes the whole piece for me. That's my favorite part of the sculpture. So I hope you enjoy it. Flatlander is a sculpture I did with my grandfather in mind, who was a farmer out by Wilcox in Hildreth, Nebraska, maybe 25 miles away from Holdrege. But I remember he had a great smile, and he always wore an old floppy hat, and so I did him leaning on his side. And it was kind of a unique piece. I chopped him up a little bit, made him into a little bit of a vignette, but I always liked the smile he had on his face, and always reminded me of my grandfather Nels. Old Friends is a sculpture I started, and I saw this guy when I lived in Italy. He fed pigeons every day down in the main square where Michelangelo's David was. So I took a picture of him, and he never really looked like that, but I decided to do him standing up, looking up at the pigeons, and he has got pigeons on his head and all over his hands, and if you've ever fed pigeons, you don't want to do that. But anyway, he had a bag full of corn or pigeon seed, whatever he was feeding them. But anyway, the Old Friends, it became a pretty popular piece, and I ended up doing him life-size. So he's all around the country as Old Friends, and I even use a picture of him on the bottles of wine I bottle out there in Healdsburg, California, when I get my Cabernet done every year, and I put Old Friends on it, and I have a picture of the sculpture.